Hi there, and welcome to Apple World. Solange Knowles just put Richard Lawson on impact and uncovered him for selling out her mother, Tina Knowles, and she accompanied receipts. Everyone realizes that Solange is not the one to play with on the grounds that she would be able to be a little bonkers with regards to safeguarding her family, and Richard is discovering that the most difficult way possible on the off chance that you missed it. Richard and Tina as of late finished their separation, however. That doesn't mean the show is over. Solange is presently guaranteeing that Richard supposedly took Tina from her when they were hitched. Solange likewise indicated that everything revolved around the cash for Richard, and you all pulled up with the receipts on how Richard has been maneuvering his direction toward Tina's life for over 30 years. You all better clutch your edges for this one in light of the fact that Solange didn't come to play. So it seems to be Tina's separation from Richard Lawson is bringing back much more show than we naturally suspected at first. We as a whole accepted that being one of those was going smoothly. No show separates except for Childless Solange. Simply filling says something else. It turns out that that marriage was a hopeless train wreck loaded with disarray and franticness. It got so terrible that Samantha Beyonce could have been supporting it to end. And you all know that assuming the respectable sisters come and give their approval to a separation, that marriage probably has been poisonous, as at first, they were all totally in backing of the marriage since they cherished that their mother had the option to find love again after her thrill ride of a union with their father Matthew Knowles. We as a whole recall what is happening right now. Matthew and Tina's marriage was show-filled and almost self-destructed numerous times before they at last called it stops in 2011, now under some other conditions. You simply know Beyonce and Solange would have had their watchmen all the manner in which up when Richard began making continues on their mother, just after she dropped that separate from stunner on Matthew, and we should be truly Solange's side. I would have been completely legitimate since Tina is, and consistently has been, that young lad. You know it's giving high worth lady we're discussing the mother of Beyonce and Solange, and we should not neglect the mother by marriage of Jay-Z, so you know she'd have admirers arranging a significant number of whom would be hoping to utilize her as the easy route to notoriety, fortune, and misdirection at the nose Carter table. Yet, like I say, would have checked out for Solange to be a wide range of dubious when Richard came in, hot prepared to lay everything on the line for Tina. Yet think about what she wasn't. Solange totally trusted Richard, and that is on the grounds that he wasn't simply some irregular buddy. He'd been tight with the family for a really long time. Way previously, things got heartfelt. Richard and Tina go way back, like before Solange or even Beyonce were conceived. Tina and Richard first crossed paths when she was pregnant with Beyonce. Her best friend Gwen, who just so turned out to be Richard's more youthful sister, was the person who presented them. Now, here's where it gets somewhat wild. Richard was promptly into Tina, even however she was pregnant, as F and very much wedded, sort of unusual, however right. However, hello, everyone has their thing. Yet we should not fail to remember, Richard was too hitched with a girl of his own at the time. However, notwithstanding these conditions, Richard burned through no time attempting to go all in. However, Tina turned him down, obviously, on the grounds that you realize she was pregnant and focused on her then spouse, while she actually consented to be companions, and they remained tight for quite a long time, despite the fact that Richard was still low-key pulverizing on her. Yet quick forward to the 90s, Richard got separated and chosen to take a shot once more. However, Tina wasn't having it. She hit him with the companion zone genuine fast and kept him moving great. Basically, that is the story that Tina has told throughout the years, on the grounds that Beyonce's previous vocal mentor David Brewer has a different story to tell, as indicated by David Brewer. The marriage was super stressed constantly on the grounds that Matthew was supposedly into some unlawful substances. In his detailed account book he composed, turns out he had raised to more grounded medications and, surprisingly, more odd ways of behaving. Gossip had it that coke had, since a long time ago, halted fulfilling his thirst and had gone to break coke. Wow! Well, David asserted that it was this medication propensity that ultimately drove Tina to begin undermining Matthew with no other individual other than Richard Lawson. David composed, I, before long, found that, albeit despondently married, Celestine was not experiencing all by herself, going over the primary house to recover my console. One evening, I stumbled over Celestine kissing a man, and I remembered him promptly. Richard Lawson, a well-known entertainer. The surprised Celestine had no real option except to present me discuss abnormal. She was assumed to be at her salon and I broadened my hand to Richard, letting him know the amount I respected his work. He gestured. It's a delight, he said, subsequent to letting him out of the house. Penn turned. Richard is my cousin. She expressed. He's on that stuff. It's difficult to fault Tina for venturing out in her marriage, since everyone knows that Matthew is undermining her. Extra hard. Things got much more chaotic, however, once Beyonce and Solange exploded, taking the entire family into the spotlight with them. Matthew, who was likewise making do Beyonce's profession, unexpectedly approached a serious income, except if simply say the reports about him abusing reserves also. In any event, taking from his own girl didn't assist his case, with making matters more awful. Matthew wasn't precisely cautious about his extracurricular exercises. It was no mysterious that he was continually venturing out on Tina. He wound up getting another lady pregnant while still hitched to Tina. That was a significant low blow, leaving Tina shattered and embarrassed. She sought legal separation, however, then at that point, had a shift in perspective and chose to offer her marriage one more opportunity for a scarcely any months. It seemed like things may, as a matter of fact, figure out. However, right when you figured it couldn't deteriorate, Matthew proceeded to get another lady pregnant. That was as the straw that broke the camel's back for Tina. She'd had enough and concluded the time had come to walk away for good. Tina, at long last, petitioned for separate from Matthew in 2011 and surmised who was on the right track there, close by Richard. Strangely, however, that's what she asserted. She was so damaged by the marriage that Richard was the person who saved her, also helped her piece her heart together again. We became companions, and it hung out. Furthermore, I have held her since she was going through a difficult stretch with the separate and the remarriage of her past spouse, and we just took as much time as is needed. We became companions, we hung out, we voyaged. Furthermore, gradually, you know, all the things that were normally associated, the associated tissue with us, occurred in a delightful kind of developmental way, later being trapped in the companion zone for more than 30 years. He concluded the time had come to once more shoot his show. He began seeking after her. Well, she actually was, and truly feeling it at first. Richard was determined, and he wore her out. It took time, however, an additional 2 years to persuade Tina to consider him to be more than simply a companion. At long last, after 32 entirely long periods of being in a companion zone, they at long last begun dating. This, moreover, makes sense of why Solange and the remainder of the NOS tribe rushed to welcome Richard out of the dark arms when he and Tina turned into a thing. Solange had known about him her whole life as Moth, Ear's nearby companion, so she believed him. Richard had been around some time before anybody in the Knowles family even longed for being renowned, so Solange realized he was in it for the right reasons. He was most certainly a superior fit for Tina than those different admirers who were soon after that. Knowles' name and the cash that accompanied it, and once Richard at long last got Tina to date him, he knew precisely how to make the right move at the right time, understanding how committed Tina was to her children. He made a point to remember them for the relationship too. He spent a great deal of time with her girls, Beyonce and Elle also, their families, ensuring they all felt like one major cheerful mixed family also. This proposition, well, that was all because of the unparalleled Blue Ivy Carter. During a family occasion, Minimal Blue, who was only a tad baby, nonchalantly asked Richard when he and Tina were going to get hitched. Richard, perceiving a once-in-a-lifetime chance idea, it was a splendid thought. He even requested Blue's authorization to propose to Tina, and of course, Blue gave him the go-ahead immediately. Yet he didn't stop there, since he chose to likewise ask her little girl's authorization. Before he proposed, he knew how much her girls intended to her, so he realized that it was significant for her to have her girls help in an interview. He said, I called her youngsters. What's more, I requested she get married from them. I believed that wasn't significant, since I realized that it didn't stand a chance, except if they were ready. I was lucky enough that they were totally ready and directly over the top amped up for it. So like I referenced, Solange was holding nothing back for the marriage at first, accepting that Richard was the ideal match for her mom. However, as time continued, she began to think again. She started to expect that perhaps they were off base about him, and that he could have been in it for the cash and distinction later. All Solange even conceded that her mother Tina can be a smidgen of a small bunch once in a while, like that one time when Tina humiliated Richard on camera by gruffly letting him know he was noticeably flawed. I imagined the kind of man I needed. I appealed to God for the sort of man I needed, and I got basically that he is great, by no means except for you, realizing he has a great deal of the characteristics. Subscribe Apple World for more videos.